Once upon a time, true love crops up for Shannon Moore and David Davis in Michigan farm country.
He saw her across the dance floor, and he knew that he couldn't live without her.
She was thrilled with David. This is it. This is the one.
But one hot summer day, their happiness withers on the vine.
Everybody knows everybody in those little towns. It didn't take long for rumors to start to develop.
Kind of shocked and taken back by it. Who would do that?
For this couple, the honeymoon is over.
Where's the preacher? We want to get married.
Shannon Moore and David Davis rush excitedly into a Las Vegas wedding chapel.
How do I look?
She's 25, a Midwestern girl with a close-knit family. He's a little older, a successful gentleman farmer.
Yes.
We gather here today to unite this lovely couple.
He was rich, he was handsome, he was funny, he was very outgoing.
His new bride is a nurse, nurturing, kind, and giving.
David told someone that he had found the perfect woman for him.
The young lovers have known each other only 7 weeks. Normally, the conservative Shannon would never do something so impulsive. But with David, she just feels it.
Shannon decided to be rebellious, take a leap, run to Vegas. She wanted to close a deal.
I do.
I do.
She trusted her instinct.
And after a blast of a honeymoon in Vegas, they float back to Michigan and David's sprawling farm.
She was thrilled with David. This was going to be happily ever after.
Or so they think. 10 months later, Dick Britton is working on his Michigan farm when he hears someone in crisis.
Seen this guy riding his horse. When he got up close, I could see it was Dave.
The newlyweds live on the next farm over. Just half an hour earlier, they'd left Dick's house together on horseback.
I said, "What's the matter?" And he said, "Shannon fell off her horse. She hit her head on a rock."
She's down there on the trail. We got to go right now. I got my car. Come on, I'll drive.
The two men race to Shannon. She's pale and very still.
Dave went over and kneeled down beside her, and he felt of her neck, and he said, "She's still alive. We got to get her to the hospital." So we picked her up, we put her in the back of my car, and Dave says, "You drive," and he said, "I'll give her mouth-to-mouth resuscitation."
It's a frantic race to save her. The hospital is 20 minutes away.
Oh, I was going so fast, I didn't want to turn around and look. And I said, "How's she doing, Dave?" And he said, "She's okay."
Lying in the backseat of a car, clinging to life, is the last place anyone expected to find Shannon Moore. Born into a loving, devoutly Catholic family in Toledo, Ohio, Shannon is the youngest of 3 children. She's Daddy's little girl and Mommy's best friend.
She was outgoing, gregarious. She had a lot of friends. She was very caring for people.
At an early age, she picks a profession that will play to that caring nature. Nursing.
She's here.
Her combination of compassion and inner strength makes her the perfect nurturer.
She was very calm, always. She could handle a situation like nobody's business.
She treasures her warm, extended family, but she's ready for more. A hopeless romantic in love with being in love, Shannon pines for a man to start her own perfect family with. But in the summer of 1979, she's feeling decidedly disenchanted at her parents' Toledo home where she still lives. A longtime beau has just dumped her.
She was just heartbroken when that relationship broke up.
That summer, a close friend invites Shannon to her wedding just outside Toledo. But she doesn't want to go alone. The last thing she needs is a reminder that she's still single at a romantic event like a wedding.
Oh, I'm not going to go to that.
My aunt convinced her that, she needed to get out there and get back to living, and maybe she'd meet somebody and have a lot of fun.
How about this one?
She goes. She tries. But it's miserable. She's left sitting alone just like she dreaded. And then, it's David Davis.
So sorry. Are you okay?
She's immediately taken.
You're not leaving already, are you?
Yeah.
Oh, just say you'll stay and have a drink with me. Or let's dance. Would you like to dance?
Okay.
Let's dance.
As they touch, the rest of the world melts
what's your
away.
It was like they were the only ones there. Spent the whole night, just the two of them pretty much. They didn't really interact with anybody else.
He knows the bride and groom too, and had come to the wedding from his farm an hour away. As they dance, David shares his story. He admits life has been rough, beginning not long after he was born in Flint, Michigan.
His parents had died when he was very young, and he was raised in an orphanage. He said that he had been in Vietnam where he was injured.
But David says he doesn't believe in giving up.
After he got out of the service, he went to the University of Michigan, where he played football.
He graduated with a psychology degree and worked in an auto plant before getting a good deal on a farm in Hillsdale. He loves nature and has always dreamed of working the land. But there was still one thing missing from his life. Until now. Shannon feels it too. He's brave, tough, but also wounded.
David's alone in the world. Shannon's a nurse. Shannon can easily give care to someone like this.
Shannon was very excited. She thought, okay, finally, this is it. This is the one.
But those early happy moments are now a distant memory. As David and his neighbor finally make it to the hospital.
I was blowing the horn all the way so people in the hospital would hear me.
The newlywed bride is in crisis. And the horrible surprises in this twisting tale are just beginning. After a horseback ride ends in a life-threatening injury, David Davis rushes his new bride, Shannon, to the hospital. As the doctors work on her, David tells police what happened. That afternoon, they were on their usual ride when they took a shortcut through a woodlot that separates their farm from their neighbors.
They weren't galloping or trotting or anything like that. Shannon was not a real secure rider, so she was uncomfortable if the horse went any faster than a walk. They entered the woodlot single file, David first.
Suddenly, he heard his wife scream.
David turned around and saw Shannon off her horse and lying on the ground.
Shannon!
The horse must have spooked and thrown her.
He immediately spotted blood, and it was apparent to him that she had hit her head on a rock approximately the size of a large grapefruit, right where she had fallen.
He says she was barely conscious. David explains to police he didn't want to leave his new bride, but she insisted.
Shannon was still lucid. She told him she was okay, just go get help.
Just go. I'll be right back.
He says he galloped off as fast as he could, desperate with panic.
Shannon, what? Yeah, we were on the horses on the trail. She's off.
He can't lose her. Their life together is just beginning. Less than a year earlier, love was blooming fast.
Go.
Thanks.
After meeting at that wedding, they're inseparable. And why not? They're perfect for each other.
David was very outdoorsy and liked to go places, and Shannon did too. She was all up for any type of adventure.
She really likes her macho man.
Women like a man to be a little bit older than them. A little bit more worldly, more life experience, maybe making more money, maybe more protective.
As they grow closer,
tell me.
David asks Shannon about her past loves.
There were a few before you, but
I just gotta slow it down a little bit.
She tells him about a guy she met in high school, whom she thought she would spend the rest of her life with.
It wasn't that he didn't love her. It was just that for him, it wasn't time for him to settle down and get married yet. For her, it was.
Shannon was devastated when he called off the engagement.
Then she meets a young businessman who proposes after just a few months. Finally, a man ready to commit.
We threw showers and were preparing for this wedding. Bridesmaids' dresses were being picked out.
But then out of nowhere, Shannon gets the shock of her life. Mr. Wonderful is already married.
They had sent out invitations, and his wife found the invitations.
He never gave Shannon an explanation why he strung her along for so long. The betrayal was completely horrifying.
She really was very embarrassed, very humiliated by what had happened.
When Shannon was deceived, it may have made her more vulnerable. I better find somebody soon, because so far I'm 2 for 2 with losses.
Yeah, I understand what you mean about not meant to be.
David believes fate must have brought them together. He explains he's also had his heart broken. Years earlier, he was engaged to a wonderful girl. But tragically, she died in a car wreck just before the wedding.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And he had vowed at that time that he would never love anybody else again, that it had hurt so bad. But then he saw Shannon across the room at that wedding, and he just felt something.
His faith and love restored. David can't wait to meet Shannon's family.
It's under fire in Vietnam. You can fix almost anything.
He was a very fun-loving, outgoing person. Walk in the room and just start talking to everybody like he'd known you for a long time.
He wows her parents with stories of his military service and adventures on the football field.
Uncle Bob really liked David. He was, in my uncle's opinion, a man's man, somebody that, you could really count on.
He's great, isn't he? Let him get away.
Aunt Sia really took a shine to David. And she told Shannon, after first meeting him, if you let this one get away, you're crazy.
Hi. Good.
I got something for you.
What? What's that?
After just 6 weeks of dating, David knows Shannon is the one.
Oh, gorgeous.
There's a surprise inside.
What? What is this?
Shannon Moore, I want you to be my wife.
Yes.
She was getting finally that fairy tale ending that she had wanted. The man that loves her, and they're gonna get married and have this family and just have this wonderful life together.
They've both suffered heartbreak and tragedy in the past.
You've made me the happiest man alive.
Now their lives have finally turned towards a more joyful future. But now, Shannon's in a hospital emergency room. They've called her parents, who are on their way. After what seems like an eternity, a doctor comes with shattering news.
I'm so sorry.
Dr. Dickman had come out to the waiting room and said that Shannon was dead. There's nothing we can do. And Dave said, she can't be. I talked to her. She said she was okay. He just hung his head down.
How cruel that fate separated this vibrant couple, just 1 day shy of their 10-month wedding anniversary. But was it really just a tragic accident? Or is there something more sinister behind Shannon's death? What dark secrets surprised the newlyweds on that wooded path? A romantic horseback ride has ended in tragedy. Newlywed Shannon Davis has died.
Oh, I'm so sorry, man.
Her husband of 10 months, David, is now a widower. Shannon's parents rush to the hospital. All they know is there's been an accident.
I walked out to the parking lot, and her mother said, just tell me she's okay. I said, I can't do that, Seal.
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry.
And they started crying.
David is in shock.
And he came over and said that she was gone. They could see he was torn apart and sobbing.
It seems utterly incomprehensible, but it's true. Shannon is gone.
They just practically couldn't say anything. Just a state of disbelief.
As they try to process the horrific news, David's heart sinks even further. He says his cash is tied up in the farm, and he's devastated to admit he doesn't have the money to pay for his own wife's funeral.
Her dad asked Dave, said, do you have any life insurance? And Dave said, no, we don't have any. And Bob said, well, we'll help pay for the funeral.
How can they be talking about a funeral when the wedding seems like just yesterday?
I'll do everything I can to help.
Only 7 weeks after meeting, the impatient young lovers take the big plunge at a chapel on the Vegas Strip.
Shannon to be your lawful wedded wife.
I do.
Shannon, do you take David?
I couldn't believe that they
lawful
weren't
wedded
going to have a big church wedding
I do.
so that all the family could be there. We always had big church weddings for everybody.
But not everyone in the family is surprised by Shannon running off to seal the deal before anything could go wrong. After all, she's already had 2 dreams of big church weddings crushed.
I think she wasn't willing to put herself out there like that. It was too humiliating the first 2 times.
So Vegas it is. After the quickie ceremony, the newlyweds totally enjoy their Sin City honeymoon. They gamble, see the sights, and spend lots of time back at the hotel. This is what honeymoons are all about. A fun, carefree celebration of true love.
Can you imagine what she's thinking? Finally, I got it right. I had 2 bad relationships, and here's a guy who's so in love with me. Woo-hoo! Time to do the touchdown cheer.
Shannon is certain this love is forever. But forever didn't even last a year. Shannon's parents are shocked to learn David plans to have Shannon cremated.
And Dave said that was her wish, that something ever happened to her, she wanted to be cremated. And her mother started crying and bawling, so, oh no, Dave, please, please let us take her back to Toledo.
Shannon's parents are devout Catholics and want a Christian burial.
I said, Dave, that's their daughter. Let them have her back. You've only been married 10 months. Dave said, okay, he backed down.
Before the burial is the funeral. David is too heartbroken to speak to anyone.
Now, I remember him sitting in a chair in the back of the room against the wall.
It was very difficult to see David like that. We knew that he must be in horrible pain. losing Shannon after such a short period of time, and no one knew exactly how to comfort him.
But then, two people show up who do know how to comfort him. Shockingly, it's his mother and stepfather.
There was a lot of whispering going on, who are these people? It can't be David's parents because he was orphaned when he was very young.
But it is his parents. He had lied about their being dead. But why?
Most people figured that he must have had a falling out with his mother, and that was the reason that he had said that he didn't have a family.
Shannon's family begins to wonder, is David not the man he said he was? After the funeral, Shannon's parents bury their girl in her hometown of Toledo. And then David goes to Florida to clear his head. It's a trip he and Shannon had planned before her death. He asks his friend and neighbor, Dick Britton, to keep an eye on his farm.
He says, I'm expecting a letter. I need that letter. It's from the funeral home. And he says, I'll call you and tell you where I'm at, and I want you to forward that letter to where I'm at. I said, sure, I'll do that, Dave.
The letter comes in. And then another, and another. Death certificates from the funeral home.
The fact that he wanted multiple copies of the death certificate is a pretty clear indication that he's planning on collecting on multiple life insurance policies.
Word of the death certificates gets back to Shannon's parents. They can't believe their ears.
They recalled vividly that David told them he had no insurance. And that was one of the reasons Bob said he was going to pay for the funeral.
It's another disturbing lie. Shannon's parents go from sympathetic toward David to suspicious of him. They begin to wonder, did their dashing son-in-law actually have something to do with Shannon's mysterious death?
Aunt Seal started having a lot of questions, and she wasn't going to let it go until she got some answers.
And the only way they'll find those answers is to literally dig up the past. Shannon Davis's parents suspect their daughter's death was not a simple horseback riding accident. And they're certain Shannon's new husband, David, is hiding something.
Their gut is telling them all these lies are starting to come out. Shannon's parents know that David's involved in some way. They know. Parents know.
But there's no evidence of foul play. Still, they ask the Hillsdale County Sheriff's Office to reopen the case.
Hey, Shannon?
A detective confirms that David lied about not having any life insurance. Very much the opposite.
Do you want?
Well, I was just thinking that just in case I'm not always around, I want you to be protected.
Well, nothing's gonna happen to you. We're gonna be together forever.
But just to make sure of everything, I want us to go ahead and sign a couple of these documents to protect us, okay? So if you wouldn't mind signing one.
He had several significant insurance policies on Shannon that had been taken out after they were married, totaling in excess of $300,000.
The original medical examiner ruled Shannon died from neck fractures,
Just need you.
an accidental death the policies would pay out for. But that decision was made without conducting an autopsy. So the county prosecutor tells the family to find out if she was in fact murdered, they will have to exhume her.
It's upsetting to know that your loved one is going to be brought back up. But at the same time, we all thought there's something there. There's something wrong, and we need to find out what that is.
But in a stunning blow, the new autopsy doesn't reveal evidence of any other cause of death.
That information was ultimately sent to the prosecuting attorney's office in Hillsdale County. And based on that information, he closed out the investigation.
No new evidence, case closed. but not for Shannon's parents.
I'm calling to talk to the Attorney General about my daughter's case.
They just know this was no accident, and they vow to get justice for their daughter.
Aunt Seal wasn't going to stop. She said, I'm not going to let this go.
No matter how long it takes, no matter who thinks they're crazy.
David Davis.
They never gave up. They kept trying to get people to pay attention.
Thank you.
Evidence or no evidence, they need to do this for their little girl.
Sometimes the only closure you can have with the loss of a child is to fight for justice. And that's what Shannon's parents did.
Desperate to find some clue, any clue, they ask that tissue samples be sent to the county toxicology lab before the body is reburied.
When we tested the tissue samples from Shannon, we got a peak on a chromatogram that was large and therefore potentially very important.
The peak means something foreign is in her tissues.
And had the shape and characteristics that it might be a drug, and I couldn't identify it.
So was Shannon some kind of addict?
Yeah, I need to think dirty. Some young people abuse drugs, and so we looked for as many common drugs of abuse as we could.
But he finds no match to any ordinary drugs. And Shannon has no history of drug abuse. He continues testing, determined to figure out what drug it is and if it played a role in Shannon's death. With this new information, Shannon's parents launch a letter-writing campaign to the state attorney general's office, pressuring them to reopen the case. They also file lawsuits to stop any payments on the insurance policies. They do not want David benefiting from Shannon's death. As the family reflects on Shannon and David's marriage, they realize there was something lurking beneath the fairy tale romance. Shannon's cousin Cheryl recalls one day when she visits her at the farm, her breezy questions about newlywed love spark an ominous response from Shannon.
Just make sure you get to know their family, Make sure you get to know them really well before you commit to them, because
She started telling me that, when you find a man that you want to marry, make sure that you know everything. Make sure that you know all about his jobs and all about his feelings about extramarital affairs.
learned a lot. Definitely learned a lot about being married.
I didn't really understand why she was telling me.
Maybe she's having this conversation with her cousin because she's actually saying, don't do what I did. Maybe Shannon's having some second thoughts. Maybe she's starting to realize that the man she married isn't the man she fantasized about.
Her parents' persistence pays off when the Attorney General's office agrees to reopen the case 4 months after her death. The new investigators confirm that the dramatic life story David told Shannon is an absolute lie. All of it.
David Davis was not the person that anybody thought he was. He was never in the military. He had not served in Vietnam. He did go to the University of Michigan, but never graduated. He'd never played football there.
His tragic story of his fiancée dying before their wedding. Totally made up. And though he had said he'd never been married before, he was actually divorced.
Not only had he been married, but he had a couple of children as well.
If Shannon had found out, she kept the humiliation to herself. Investigators also uncover that Shannon was just the latest in a long line of whirlwind romances for David Davis.
I can't believe it. Just stunning. Quit, Ed.
Oh, yeah.
The state police were able to find at least 3 women that Davis had courted in approximately 1 year before he met Shannon. In each of those cases, the pattern was exactly the same. He courted them with a full court rush, tried to sweep them off their feet,
What's your view on, like, marriage and having children?
And in each case,
Can we talk about something else?
if the woman either said, I'm not ready yet, or I don't want to get married,
I think I would probably want to wait a few years.
Say, it's getting late.
he immediately turned around and found another woman.
Was he a hopeless romantic? Or just trolling for a victim to marry fast and insure to the
I
hilt?
haven't really thought of that.
Check, please.
He found the perfect victim in Shannon.
Is that a wedding ring?
Yeah, I'm married.
Oh, you're married?
Because she had gone through the 2 terrible relationships shortly before.
Yeah, well, whatever.
She was on the rebound, and unfortunately, she was an easy target.
David's lies continued during the marriage.
During the whole time that David was married to Shannon, there was another woman across town that he had been courting.
He tells the woman he's really a government agent posing as a farmer. His mission? To protect Shannon from some secret threat he wasn't authorized to explain.
He had told this young woman his mission would take probably about a year.
Mission accomplished, baby.
2 days after Shannon's funeral, David tells the other woman he is cleared to resume their relationship. Would she be the next Mrs. Davis?
He came to her and said, my mission is complete. I'm done. Let's go to Florida.
Re-interviewing Shannon's mother, investigators learned that on the day of the accident, David had several scratches on his cheek.
When my aunt asked him what had happened, David told her that it was while he was riding his horse to try and get help for Shannon that he had gotten scratched by the tree limbs in the woods.
If you're going to be sideswiped by branches when you're riding, you'd expect them to be horizontal, not vertical.
But there's still no proof whatsoever that he hurt Shannon. Then the toxicology lab finally identifies the mysterious chemical found in her tissue samples. It's succinylcholine, a powerful muscle relaxant used by surgeons and veterinarians during operations.
It essentially paralyzes a person almost instantly. The only muscle in your body that continues to work if you've been given an injection of succinylcholine is your heart.
If a person were injected with succinylcholine, they weren't on a ventilator, they would die in 3 to 6 minutes. And so a person suffocates from the inability to breathe.
Davis might have gotten the drug for alleged use on his livestock, with the more sinister purpose in mind. State police exhumed Shannon's body a second time to look for injection sites. The coroner finds 2 tiny bruised areas, the back of her arm and her wrist.
And we biopsied both of those. I found high concentrations of succinylcholine in both of those bruises.
Finally, the physical evidence they need. In October 1981, 15 months after Shannon's death, David Davis is charged with first-degree murder. But by now he's sold his Michigan farm and is living on a sailboat in Florida with his new girlfriend. Through his attorney, prosecutors order him to come back.
David Davis smelled a trap. He said to his girlfriend at the time, I have to go back to Michigan and take care of some details on the lawsuit. I'll be back shortly.
But instead of going back to Michigan, David Davis vanishes.
He fell off the edge of the earth.
Investigators now believe David Davis killed his new wife, Shannon, by injecting her with a drug that paralyzed her breathing. But he's disappeared, and the FBI is tasked with finding him. An ex-girlfriend last saw him in Florida. Agents then find his boat abandoned in Haiti, but again, he vanishes.
They asked me one time, They said, where do you think he is? I said, he's near water and it's warm. Because that's what he always talked about. Tropical islands, living on a yacht in the South Pacific somewhere.
Agents scour the Caribbean for any sign of the fugitive. In April 1982, Shannon's family announces a large cash reward. For years, the FBI works with local cops, chasing phantoms across the globe.
Many tips were received by the authorities as to David's location, that he may have been spotted in Hawaii, somewhere in the Caribbean.
But each time they follow up on a sighting, he's long gone before they get there. As months and then years pass, Shannon's family worries David Davis will never face justice.
There were quite a few times when I thought they're never going to catch up to him.
Then in 1988, a true crime television show profiles Shannon's story.
A woman in Honolulu saw the show and called her local police department saying, I know who they're looking for.
But he no longer goes by David Davis. His new moniker is Dave Bell.
Mai Tais for everybody.
She believed that he was now an island-hopping airline pilot centered or based out of American Samoa in the South Pacific. He was about as far away as you can get without starting to get closer again.
And he's got a new wife. On January 6, 1989, FBI agents set up a sting at the international airport in Samoa, asking David's boss to call him in for a meeting.
You are David Davis.
When he showed up, the agent confronted him, said, "Are you David Davis?" And he said, "Who?" And the agent said, "Quit playing games. I know who you are. You're under arrest." At that point, Davis surrendered and admitted who he was.
That's my husband.
What's his name?
Dave Bell.
Man, his name is David Davis. He's wanted for murder.
His new wife is stunned.
She had no idea who or what she had married. This must have been a colossal shock to her, that this man who was a well-respected member of the community out there was suddenly being taken away in handcuffs and charged with murder.
She's another victim of David's seemingly endless lies to trusting women. But at least she survived her marriage to him. Finally, his sunny island life on the run is over.
I had gotten used to the fact that we were never going to see him brought to justice, and then it was almost like out of the blue, this lightning bolt of luck comes and we get him.
More than 9 years after Shannon's death, David Davis's murder trial begins on November 28, 1989. Prosecutors present their case, arguing that he targeted, married, and killed Shannon for the insurance money.
David's thirst for money really knew no bounds.
Prosecutors contend he's struck when all the insurance policies were finally in place.
You know what? I think I know what could make this even more memorable.
Yeah, what's that?
They believe that during the horseback ride at the farm, he convinced Shannon to stop and make love in the woods.
It looks pretty soft.
Oh, all right.
Yeah.
She must have thought it a romantic time, the kind of thing newlyweds do on a lark, not knowing she was about to die.
During that time, David Davis got the hidden syringe full of succinylcholine, snuck up on her, and injected it into her shoulder.
But he failed to hit her bloodstream. Shannon fought back.
He overpowered her and smacked her head on that rock.
Stunned, she lay still. while he injected her again. This time, he hit a blood vessel.
And at that point, Shannon started to suffocate to death.
Unable to move, but still conscious, Shannon's body slowly begins shutting down.
There's very little doubt in my mind that Shannon suffered a horrible death where she could feel herself dying, she knew she was dying, and couldn't do anything to stop it from happening.
She's looking at this man that is supposed to be her husband, that loves her and is supposed to protect her and take care of her, and instead, he's killing her. I cannot comprehend what type of person can do something like that. He has to have no conscience whatsoever.
Once the drug had done its job, he rode off to Dick Britton's with his tragic tale of a horseback riding accident. At trial, his defense team presents this accident story to the jury. But the jury isn't fooled. It takes them only 2 hours to convict him of first-degree murder. Nearly a decade after he killed his wife, David Davis is sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole.
This whole relationship was for the end product. He targeted her. He stalked her in a way, using love to lure her in. He groomed her. He got her to the altar, and then he murdered her.
Shannon's parents, Bob and Lucille Moore, have both passed on. They are the true heroes in this story.
I don't believe that Shannon's murder would have been solved if it wasn't for my aunt and uncle pushing.
They helped solve the case, and their efforts to block the insurance worked. David Davis never made a penny.
They were told the case was closed. They would not let the case die.
David Davis took Shannon from all those who loved her, and from those whom she may have helped.
One of the things that strikes me most now, 30 years later, is how young she was and how much life she still would have had. And being a nurse, you know, how much she could have helped others and never got that opportunity.